You are listening to This Week in Clown World with Ben and Hobbs, so sit back, relax, take your black pill, and enjoy the show.
Thursday, everybody. It's This Week in Clown World with Ben and Hobbs. I'm Hobbs. He's Reverend Jeff Grams. Nope, it's This Week in Clown World with Ben and Hobbs. I'm Hobbs. He's Ben. You're in Clown World, but you knew that already, didn't you? Hello, everybody.
What are we going to talk about? Nothing. Actually, congratulations to everybody on making it through July.
Yeah, it was quite a July. You know, we had that meme of the month calendar where it was like the Hawktua girl and the sewer Jews, and you know, every month had a little bit of a meme. And I guess the meme for July is going to be, you know, Donald Trump getting shot. But holy shit, if that didn't happen, there was plenty of other things that could have definitely taken the spotlight.
I mean, you know, and I listened to quite a few podcasts. You do too. I mean, they've commented on the same thing. You know, they don't. A lot of times we'll meet before the show and go through some show prep. They're like, we don't even do show prep hardly. We just pick three things and run with it. There's so much going on, we don't even make it through.
Yeah, I mean, any one single event you could talk about for an hour and just shoot the shit about. Some of the things that happened recently, I sent the link to Simon, but I also see that he's doing a Twitter Spaces right now, so I don't know if he's going to be able to jump in with us or not.
Oh, shoot. Okay.
There was a very high-profile assassination. Another one. Not Donald Trump. The Israelis took out a high-level leader of Hamas in
like second in command or something.
Yeah, in Tehran. I mean, you know, it's a word that gets thrown around when somebody does something a little bit audacious, and I think that it applies very appropriately here. That's chutzpah. Oy vey, the chutzpah on these.
Have you seen some of the details on it? I mean, they put that in motion like 2 months ago, I guess.
Yeah, the thing that I heard was like they blew him up with a bomb, and I'm like, okay, they hit him with an airstrike or a drone strike or something. It's like, no, this was a planted bomb. Like, yeah. This is peak Middle East. A planted bomb took this guy out. So, I mean, it really doesn't matter which side of this conflict you're on. I just hope both sides are having fun.
I mean, the amount of monitoring they obviously do on Iran at this point, that they know, all right, well, when they have a special event, these individuals stay in this house. So we'll get into that house, we'll plant a bomb, and we'll just hope. I guess they just hoped somebody of value would show up in it.
I guess I don't really 100% understand what it was or the logistics behind all of it, but this really strikes me like what was that? There was that movie about after the Israeli Olympic team was killed at the Munich Olympics back in the 70s. Mm-hmm. Then there was like a Mossad hit squad that hunted down all of the perpetrators of it and just did like assassinations in countries all over the world, just like have like a little Silence 22 that looked like a bicycle pump, and they would just walk up behind the guy and pop him in the back of the head and just keep walking. And it's
some No Country for Old Men going on there. Call it, friendo.
Yeah.
I'm going to guess Mossad doesn't have a DEI initiative, though, apparently.
Funny, considering a lot of people think that they're the ones that are behind the majority of that.
Huh. For what reason would they be behind that? You know, speaking of DEI, we could roll into some Olympics there, too.
Oh, yeah. That's something I think we could probably have a whole damn episode on. Is like, I don't know, I made a meme that got a little bit of traction about it. Yeah, so the opening ceremony looked like something that a high school drama club would put on. The production values were awful, but the subject matter of it left a lot of people confused and or pissed off because they were confused. And yeah, so yeah, the big thing was immediately people were pointing out the similarities between the layout of the drag weirdos and the Last Supper, Leonardo da Vinci's Last Supper.
Uh-huh.
And then a lot of people were like, "Oh no, this was paying an homage to Feast of the Gods or Feast of Dionysus or Dionysus or however it's pronounced." And
The alternate version of Bacchus, by the way.
yeah, yeah. Ben, what are you trying to? Yeah, but yeah, it was supposed to be an homage, or allegedly supposed to be an homage to the Greek history of the games, and then a lot of people were pointing out that the guy who organized it and set it up specifically stated that it was supposed to be a parody of the Last Supper, and it was up on the French Olympics website that it was a parody of the Last Supper. So that explanation went right out the window. There was pagan Greek imagery, but it was obviously a parody of the Last Supper. And what I don't understand is, like, even if the homage to the Greek origin of the games was true, which it isn't, but even if it was true, why would you depict the Greek pantheon, which are supposed to symbolize excellence and physical beauty and aesthetic perfection? Why would you depict them with
men? Of men, I mean, maybe that's what they're going for.
No, I mean the Greek pantheon was men and women. Like, but why would you depict?
But the Olympics are supposed to be the peak of male aesthetics. Aesthetics right there.
But I'm not talking about the Olympics
Just
Olympic
the pantheon.
Athlete.
Okay.
Yeah, the Greek pantheon is supposed to be this like beautiful, perfect, aesthetic, group of gods. Why would you depict them as these gross, dysgenic trannies and drag weirdos? Like
that's what bugged me more, was that they were fat and out of shape, and it's supposed to be an homage to the Greeks when
like literally nothing about it made sense, and it pissed everybody off to the point where the Olympics actually pulled the video from their own website and from their YouTube account. So
well, and here's the thing that bugs me. I mean, that the Olympics are a thing on the world stage. There's countries all over the world watching this. Some countries don't have your same gay leftist values, France. So why are you pushing that out there? I mean, pick something middle of the road just because you're a member of the world community that everybody could enjoy, instead of doing that crap.
It's not even just that either. Doesn't France have its own rich and deep history that they could put up on the public stage rather than a metal band and some faggy homage to Greek culture? France could have done something that was uniquely French, which is something that the countries that host the Olympic Games usually do. It's like, hey, we're China, we're hosting the Olympics. Here is this big grand display of Chinese culture. Or Russia did the same thing. Or, I guess Britain back in 2012. I don't know.
France, if you ask me, France has been all downhill since Vercingetorix was killed by Caesar. I mean, they.
Well, you're taking it way back.
That was kind of peak France. I don't know. I mean, Napoleon had some moves, but I mean, France is kind of a weird culture, if you ask me.
Yeah.
I mean, they got wiped out, early aughts, and just kind of never really recovered, I don't think.
It's endemic to the broader cultural self-loathing of all European nations right now, where we're at the top, or they were. European culture, Western society is at the top of the world, and we need to feel guilty about that for some reason, because this Marxist ideology, the dichotomy of, if you're doing good, it's because somebody else is doing bad, or you exploited somebody else. It's like, rising tides can't raise all ships. It's, I'm doing good because I took it from somebody else, or I'm doing good because this person's doing bad. It's the fixed pie fallacy of wealth, and the Europeans have just been beating themselves over the head with this, to their detriment, to their suicidal detriment.
Simon's here. Let's get his opinion of the French. Surely, as a former Englishman, he might have an opinion here. Let me get him in here.
I'm sure that Englishman is kind of like a Marines. You're not a former Englishman. You are just an Englishman.
Simon, what's your opinion of the French?
Well, I had to say, when you kept on talking about perfect male physical specimens, I thought that was my cue a few minutes ago.
Zing!
I have been all over France and to France many, many times. And it is very much a case of massive urban decay, but also a youth flight from many of the villages that had very poor employment prospects. In that regard, it's much like Japan, but they do have a massive migrant population there. So there's whole districts of Paris that I would never go into, and even places like Colmar, Strasbourg, even much smaller places like Macon. I'd be concerned, frankly.
Well, there's an actual thing called Paris syndrome. Have you ever heard of that? Where tourists visit Paris and become physically, it's common among Japanese tourists. They build up this, image of Paris in their mind, of the city of light and romance. And they go to Paris and it's all shit and garbage.
Yeah, no, I mean, around Gare du Nord, it used to be great. You could get, pick up a 2-star hotel for less than $100 a night, and you'd feel safe walking around and going to the restaurants and stuff. And now it's just like an absolute migrant hellhole. It's really severe there.
Yeah,
now,
terrible.
It seems like France. I mean, are these former colonies that they're moving?
No, not necessarily. But I mean, they bear equal responsibility along with Britain and the United States for completely destroying Libya and turning that into like a slave trading, human trafficking dystopian nightmare. Courtesy of Sarkozy. And you got a whole load of migrants who came from Iraq and Afghanistan. They're there. You have got a lot of people who have literally walked through the Sahara Desert, and they're from what they call now the Sahel. And I was just abusing the leader of the One Australia National Party, Pauline Hanson, who I had been an admirer of for over 30 years, but who turned out to be a crazy Zionist, unfortunately, and was wearing the relevant flag in the US Senate that was particularly, not the US Senate, sorry, the Australian Senate, that was particularly galling. And she put out a video talking about the problems with unlimited migration going into Australia that had really, for at least 20 years, been under very strict Trump-esque control. And now, like Canada, they're just flying in thousands of people a day. So they're bringing in over 750,000 a year. And they're literally flying them in, like, deliberately. It's not even like America where they're just walking over the southern border. They're flying people in. So that costs money just to bring them there in the first place, right? As all part of this, kind of ethnic diversity is wonderful, even if they're all from a different culture.
Well, at least they have a history of criminals being brought to their shores.
Well, they're definitely reenacting that, that's for sure. I don't know if they're going to start doing nuclear testing in the desert again, but that's another possibility with their AUKUS program. I'm sure that's pillar number 3. And so, no, France has got massive problems. But, it's very hard to feel sorry for them because they've had a chance in 2017 and in 2022 to elect Marine Le Pen.
Mm-hmm.
And twice they've voted for that, freakoid Macron.
Well, and I've
so,
done some research into Le Pen, and they call her far right, but she's she's like a Democrat in America.
Yeah, no, like
it's all relative.
Her father, who she's estranged from, was definitely pretty staunch. But frankly, I think if she was elected, you'd get someone like Meloni, who all the media described as being like an absolute raving fascist. And then since she's been elected, has been like a female version of Chuck Schumer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's
disappointing.
That's common with a lot of politicians is they'll skew whatever direction their base is for the general election, and then once they get in, they'll move to the center. But the amount that Meloni did, I think, shocked a lot of people that were hoping that she would be like the Italian Orban or something like that.
No, I mean she refused to even let Orban's party join her group, the ECR, in the European Parliament. They had to form their own group recently because she wouldn't let Orban's Fidesz party into her political grouping.
Oh, so back to the Olympic thing, we had Raptor brought up a point we didn't touch on, the golden calf imagery that was there.
Well, you had the golden calf, you had the fourth horseman of the apocalypse. Yeah. Obviously, you had that very large lesbian rights obese DJ who was wearing the female blue version of Musk's. He claims it was for Halloween, but it's been on his Twitter profile for 2 years, and I suspect he wears it in bed. That kind of red Baphomet outfit, armor suit that he's got. So she had on the blue version of that. That's the woman who, she wasn't pretending to be Jesus. She actually, the saint-like crown that she was wearing with the stars around it, that was actually from a depiction of the Virgin Mary. So
is that the one they were saying was supposed to be Joan of Arc? Is that the same one?
No, it's the real fat brunette in the blue Baphomet outfit, who was right in the center of the Last Supper.
Yeah,
ish.
She had the halo.
She had the halo. Yeah.
So what's up with this imagery? I mean, I missed the episode where you and Sam talked about this. I mean, is this active Satanism?
I mean, there's that famous guy, Catherine Philippe, or Philippe Catherine, who was the kind of naked image that was kind of like Neptune, all painted blue, with a kind of blonde beard, who sang a song or something. And then one of the cross-dressing widows over his shoulder had his right nut hanging out from his bike shorts.
Right next to a child.
Yeah, literally had his bollock full out, hanging out from his shorts.
Yeah.
Which may not have been intentional, I accept, but the idea that this was some kind of mistake is absurd, because obviously they had a dress rehearsal, obviously there was a script, obviously the national and the International Olympic Committee got to see it in advance. Macron, who said the whole thing was magical, which was probably correct, loved it, obviously, because it fit very much in with his lifestyle during the 1980s. A lot of video imagery of him in gay nightclubs in the 80s. So
we talk about that the leftist media, they use their mainstream sources to signal stuff. Who do you think they're signaling to with this? I mean, what's the point, or is it just to rile up the fundies? I mean, what would be the point of doing this, do you guys think?
Yeah, well, I mean, there is a certain degree of lesser magic involved in really rubbing it in your face, particularly if you back down and don't protest. I mean, the two people who have protested the most, and indeed, Erdogan called the Pope yesterday, I believe, either today or yesterday. I'm trying to keep track of all the Venezuelan, Argentinian, and West Asian news at the moment. But so first, Khamenei, the Ayatollah of Iran, he was the first one who kicked a stink because in the Quran, Jesus is referred to repeatedly, and he's widely recognized as one of the greatest Islamic prophets and also a miraculous healer. So he's treated like the equivalent of like a saint, like a big saint, like St. John or St. Paul or something like that, right? And so he was furious, and he made the point, like, if this was Muslims, would it be burning the city to the ground?
Yeah.
So why are you guys like taking it, like, beyond turning the cheek? And then Erdogan said this is like madness, and quoted Dugin in terms of the Western neoliberal never-ending slide into worse and worse debauchery. And then he called the Pope and he said, why are you not saying anything? How can you be the leader of Christianity and not be kicking up a real like diplomatic fuss with the French government and the IOC? And the Pope was like, thank you for your opinion. Have a nice day.
Man, it's kind of a weird timeline when you have the Ayatollah of Iran and the president of Turkey trying to urge the Pope into a new crusade on France.
Yeah. It's pretty upside down world, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, never thought that I would do that.
As I said on our show, I don't know, a couple of days ago, like, we've been living like that in America for the last 50 years with these crazy Christian Zionists who just gave an award to the Israeli ambassador to the United Nations. Kufi, Pastor Hagee, gave him this giant plate that was called the Defender of Israel Award. And I'm like, this guy's the Israeli ambassador, and you have to give him an award for defending Israel. Like, isn't that kind of like in his job description? And he even went on stage and said, you shouldn't be giving me an award. The nation of Israel should be giving you a medal.
I saw that.
For all of the support that you've been giving us for like 50 years. And their whole organization was called Kufi, which stood for Christians United for Israel. And I'm like, these people are taxing your churches out of existence in Jerusalem and spitting on priests. And you're still playing this whole Judeo-Christian defenders of culture, like, what do they call it? A Comic-Con, where people like dress up as like, cartoon characters and laugh around and stuff.
Yeah.
That's literally what these Christian Zionists are doing. These people treat them like shit daily. And there's like a dozen videos on YouTube of Netanyahu in the 80s, the 90s, and the 2000s saying, I can manipulate the hell out of these people. They give us money. We give them nothing. And just like mocking them. And they still send them money every year, billions.
Well, I want to get into the Palestine thing for more, but I still want to hit on the Olympics a little bit. We didn't talk much about the boxing match.
So I haven't been spending a great deal of time on that issue, but I did look at some photos because
they don't have any videos of it. The match. Have you noticed that?
Oh no! There's loads of videos. There's loads.
I couldn't find any. I couldn't find any earlier. I mean, was it a brutal match? Was she just getting pummeled, or?
Well, no, it took two hits.
But two big hits straight in the face.
Yeah,
she
it
threw in the towel after 46 seconds, but they were only 3-minute rounds, a few of them, right? And so even the Algerians are pointing out, look, Algeria is not an LGBTQ XYZ whatever snake symbol haven. It's really not, right?
Mhm.
It's one step removed from walking around with your nuts hanging out in a downtown Tehran. And so there's pictures of that woman literally in elementary school wearing a dress and stuff. And supposedly she suffers from something called hyperandrogenism. So she has like sky high testosterone. Obviously, a very manly figure, but apparently all of these reports of, a cock and two balls, so to speak, are not correct. The International Boxing Association disqualified her from the boxing world championships like a year or 2 years ago, having done blood work. Obviously turned up to the weigh-in with a bit of a 5 o'clock shadow that raised a few eyebrows, and for the women's match, and was disqualified from that. But the IOC doesn't require physical exams or blood work, and they rely entirely upon the passport copies provided by the respective national Olympic organizations. And so on that basis, it's surprising that there's not like 10 American guy/girls and Germans and Brits and Canadians and French and Spanish, because you just fill out a form and say, I want to be known as, Miss So-and-so, and they'll issue you with a new passport. And if that's all the Olympic organizers want to put you in the women's competition as opposed to the men's competition, I frankly am surprised that there's only an Algerian who does appear to have a legitimate medical condition, and believe it or not, a Taiwanese person thing.
Yeah.
And so...
Well, that's why I thought it was weird when it was Algeria, because I knew they weren't LGBTQ friendly. I mean, so she's basically just a mutant.
Yeah, not apparently a hermaphrodite, but with this weird, what they called, I did read it, and I'm thinking I'm pronouncing this right, hyper androgenism.
Well, and that probably goes both ways. I mean, surely you guys have met a dude who obviously has too much estrogen. But that just goes to show why men are better, because you got too much testosterone and you can excel. Too much estrogen and you're just kind of a bitchy twink.
I've been hearing a lot of things about that boxer, and I think it's
but that's the point. When you read the details, it's a bit more complex than a bloke in a skirt.
Right.
Yeah.
But you make a good point. I mean, why aren't other countries just dishing out passports that say Mr. is now Mrs.?
Yeah. Hulk Hogan is suddenly the Hulkess or something.
It brings up a major loophole. But I mean, where do you start, to circle back, where do you start cutting off mutants? I mean, Michael Phelps was a mutant by all metrics. I mean, he had webbed fingers and toes, and he had a freakish physique that didn't make any sense. I mean,
lung capacity almost doubled that of a normal human.
Yeah. Where do you decide? Yeah.
Arm span. Yeah.
But the Chinese have got their fair share of 8-foot tall basketball players as well, including in the women's team.
I mean, that Algerian, I mean, she should be allowed to be in there. I mean, she's a mutant. She's got the right chromosomes. Sorry about your luck, other women. I mean,
yeah. See,
try being a dude dealing with other dudes.
But frankly, it concerns me that the entire GOP is paying more attention to that than how we're being bamboozled into World War III by Bibi.
Yeah,
because that looks like that could happen like this weekend. I mean, it's freaking crazy. You've got old Graham, talking of rather odd people, Lindsey Graham, that is, who's trying to push through a congressional resolution on the authorization of military force against Iran. He's
I
literally
mean, we
put that
can
into
go ahead and move.
US
Yeah, let's move into the Palestine stuff. I mean, we've beat the Olympic thing twice in the face for 46 seconds, so let's put that away. And,
more than 46 seconds.
yeah, let's. I mean, where do we even start with it? I mean, do we start with that assassination? You heard us talking about that. I mean, that, you know, think what you will about Mossad, but that
Well,
shows
they
some
had his
expert level planning.
funeral procession. They had his funeral procession in Tehran today, and the eulogy was done by the Grand Ayatollah. So that was a big deal, particularly since Grand Ayatollah is Shia, and Haniyeh was actually Sunni.
Great. The Jews are going to unite the Shias and Sunnis. That'll be a
funnily enough, quite a few commentators were actually pointing that out today.
That'd be like if somebody brought the Catholics and Lutherans together somehow.
Yeah. So the Aardvarks may well manage to pull that one off. Congratulations, guys. And
one step to the peace in the Middle East.
Wrong way, though.
Revelation.
Yeah, but see the beside the boxing stuff, and we had the 34th speech, and tomorrow I'll have the 34th Million Man March in Yemen by Commander Dr. Abdul Malik Al-Houthi. It's quite a mouthful to say, pity when you had an entire bottle of Chardonnay. Fortunately, I'm stopping at half. And so he did a relatively short speech today. We had the leader of Hezbollah, Hassan Nasrallah, also did a speech because he was doing the eulogy at the funeral of Fuad Shukra, who the Israelis allege was responsible for that soccer game missile strike that happened last Saturday in the Israeli-occupied Syrian Golan Heights. And Hezbollah have been saying, even today, Nasrallah said, why would we bomb a load of Arab Druze Syrian citizens that have refused Israeli passports? Their family have been living there for hundreds of years, but the Israelis have occupied that area since 1967. Like, why would we possibly want to attack those natural allies? Doesn't make any sense whatsoever. But the Aardvarks have been using that as their justification for doing what their defense minister wanted to do right back to the 10th of October, after the Palestinian attacks in the southern area of Israel, to say, fine, let's just hit everyone. And while the Americans are backing us, let's invade southern Lebanon. And Biden had to personally speak on a Zoom call to the Israeli cabinet to get them to stand down from that plan. And he's wanted to do this ever since. And Bibi was meeting with Trump in Mar-a-Lago, that incident occurred, and they've massively run with that to try and get public sympathy for invading Lebanon. But fortunately, a lot of the surrounding countries are like, why would these people do that? And even Nasrallah today, in his relatively short speech, said, we have killed Arab civilians in the past. There was a famous incident, I think, in 2006. And he said, every time that's occurred, we have come out, apologized, and asked for forgiveness. And he said, if we had done this and we had killed all those kids of any race, we would have come out and apologized for killing children and asked for forgiveness or paid some compensation or something. And he said, we haven't done that because it wasn't us. Now, the Israelis located that guy in an apartment building that they claimed had ordered the strike. And they fired 2 large missiles into the building, collapsed like 7 or 8 stories of it, and killed, I think, 7 people, including that Hezbollah guy and an Iranian guy who was visiting him, and wounded like another 80 civilians.
Mm-hmm.
So they claimed it was a precision strike, and they pancaked an entire residential apartment building that was right next to a hospital, literally like adjoining walls to a hospital.
So back to the Lebanon. I was actually kind of surprised the Lebanon thing hasn't kicked off yet. Are the fundies going to stick by Israel?
Well, no, there's two reasons for that. One,
Mm-hmm.
they had to give the Europeans a chance to evacuate,
Mm-hmm.
and which has been difficult because a lot of the airlines have stopped flying there. And two, the entire Israeli Defense Force almost collapsed into civil war when the New York Times and CNN finally followed up on some of the local media and Israeli Supreme Court stories about that torture center called Sed Tayman. And so the military police went to arrest 9 guys, and one of them put out an appeal on TikTok or YouTube or something saying, oh, they're going to be arresting us for like allegedly mistreating, which turned out to be real severe, like anal rape with implements.
I saw that, like left them paralyzed or something, didn't it?
Yeah, of some of the prisoners. So they went to with warrants to open formal like UCMJ type what's it? United States Military Code of Justice, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they have the same kind of equivalent in Israel, supposedly, that never gets used, unless you're fucking your general's daughter. And so they went to arrest and question these guys. Then they transferred them to another base, and hundreds of right-wing protesters, led by cabinet members, turned up and forced their way onto the military base, and we're going to spring these guys from the equivalent of Fort Leavenworth, right? And so that was the chief of staff, the equivalent of General Brown in America, or Milley, his predecessor, had to literally fly there in a helicopter, talk down the situation. They flew in two companies of the equivalent of the 10th Mountain Division to re-secure the base.
You didn't hear much about that, did you?
And that was why the attack on Lebanon got delayed.
Well, like I started to say, do you think the fundies are going to stick by in Lebanon once they start killing Christian? I mean, Lebanon's like a third Christian, and aren't they located in the south?
Yeah, you've got the Christian Maronites and the Druze there, and Jumblat Walid, who's this famous figure from like the 80s, who was allied with the Israelis during the Israeli invasion from like 82 to 96 and all that kind of stuff. He put out this statement, first of all, saying that there should be an independent, like UN investigation to find out the origins of the missile, and then try and figure out, like with the radar tracks and stuff, where it actually was fired from. Obviously, the Aardvarks didn't want that because they were getting a lot of European condemnation of Hezbollah, and they really figured that they had turned the genocide story back in their favor. Mm-hmm. And so, having called for that, along with the Secretary General of the UN, Antonio Guterres, and some other countries, who just said, okay, you're making all these allegations, but it's really odd. Like, this, you've got to look at, Key Bono, who benefits, and it definitely wasn't Hezbollah. So when they refused to allow any kind of independent investigation, which is normally the case, or if they do, it takes, 3 years and then gets suppressed. They came up with some scraps of a missile that could have come from anywhere, because over 100 of them had been fired over the last 10 months. Mm. So there was no kind of chain of custody or independent investigation. Smotrich tried to go to the children's funeral He almost got lynched. And then Netanyahu, so literally he had to be evacuated from the town. And then Netanyahu, having not somehow learnt from that the day beforehand, turned up with like a massive security detail the following day. And the whole crowd, including the relatives, were held back by Shin Bet, the kind of equivalent of the FBI in Israel. And they were shouting out from behind the barriers, Netanyahu, you war criminal, you dog, get out of here. Like the whole crowd was chanting that. And they had to, he claimed, I went to visit them and I spoke with the families. Total bullshit. Like he drove across the perimeter of the city limit or town limit, and word got out that he was there. They had to lock the whole town down, and they kept all these people behind, multi-layered barricades. And I'm surprised the crowd didn't just go bananas, because imagine if the Israeli FBI had turned up to escort the Israeli prime minister, and they'd ended up using live rounds on the bereaved relatives of the dead children.
Right.
Can you imagine how that would have changed the international sentiment about the event?
Yeah.
Well, and pivot to American politics a little bit. It seems like the Palestinians don't have a horse in the race in the upcoming presidential election. You got Trump, who's very pro-Israel, and then you have Kamala, who's married to a Jewish man, and it looks like she's eyeing a Jewish man as her VP too, Shapiro. So
no, apparently there's a big problem come out on that.
On Shapiro?
Apparently, yeah, there's a problem with Kelly, who's it turns out to be an investor in a company that was helping develop Chinese balloons.
That's a small problem.
So that's a small problem. Plus, his daughter was putting videos on TikTok and Instagram of her personally cooking up drugs. Mark Kelly's daughter in the 20s.
We've already had that. We're used to that.
We've had that with Hunter Biden.
We're used.
Maybe that's a plus.
Don't let that stop him.
Yeah. So Kelly looks like he may be out. Josh Shapiro was very strong in the runnings, and now it turns out that his office, and it's not clear whether it was somebody in his office or him personally, paid off a sexual abuse, not just harassment, sexual abuse claimant, just like last year. And everyone's trying to say, okay, this woman says she wants to speak, but is bound by a non-disclosure agreement. So why didn't you just let her off that? And they're like, oh, we really wouldn't like to do that. So they're like, okay, so was it him who was like raping her, or like somebody else in his office? But the point was that now looks super toxic. So apparently we're left with Waltz, who's
a raving communist.
Minnesota. Is he Minnesota?
Yep, Minnesota.
And
which is kind of a hotbed for communism for some reason.
Yeah, she's 8 points up. But that's the problem. He brings nothing to the table. She's already winning that state in a landslide, right? Mm-hmm. So the last person is Governor Beshear of Kentucky, that despite being a raving communist, somehow has carried that state twice. I do not understand.
I never understood that either.
Yeah, I do not understand that. But they reckon. But I'm like, that's where Rand Paul and McConnell come from. So we know McConnell is an utter sellout to the Chinese Communist Party, along with his wife, who was made, what was she, Transportation or Commerce Secretary under Trump, right? So whether or not Beshear could swing the whole state of Kentucky to Kamala, I don't know.
Tall order.
It seems a stretch, right? So
is Beshear the current?
Current Kentucky governor. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So
Kelly's the current senator from Arizona.
Because I thought Beshear was
Arizona's all stitched up. But the one bit of good news though was that guy Richter. otherwise known as Sphincter, as I call him, who's the Secretary of State for Maricopa County. Is he the recorder or the Secretary of State?
Oh, I know. Yeah.
He's that guy with like the really terrible kind of ginger hair that looks like he's taken like 50,000 rats.
Yeah.
And he got beaten in the primary for his re-election. So if that person has the time, they might be able to clean up that process.
Well, here's something I've noticed, and I'm not used to it being a white male. It seems like the Democrats are pandering to white men. What? It's so weird. What is that about? Do you guys think?
I think that they realize that white people are still 65% of this country, and about half of that is white men, and they realize that shitting on us is not electorally, in the long run going to be a very good idea. So they realize they have to at least soften their approach. It's like, okay, we can hate them behind closed doors, but the white male hate is out in the open.
I've never seen the Democrats pander to white men. It's like, is this what it feels like as a black person almost? I mean, you got white dudes for Harris. You got they're actively courting 3 white dudes just because.
Yeah, no, 75,000 registered for that. And it wasn't white dudes; it was incels.
I mean, for the VP, they're just looking at white dudes for VP. It's like, what? Why don't they pull the Marvel route and do like a girl power thing? The all women ticket. But no, they're pandering to white men. It's so weird. I can't think of any election where Democrats have pandered to white men.
Well, New Scum was an option. Bernie Sanders was an option in the past. So, and then they
got a Bernie Sanders, Bernie bro vibe. They're calling it dudes for Kamala Harris. Are they trying to get the Bernie bros to come back on board, you think?
They're just incels who hope that maybe there's a chance that some fit black woman will sleep with them if they back Kamala, right?
Please, sir, might I have a crumb of pussy?
The white dudes for Harris is just such a weird thing that came out of nowhere. And those guys should be submitted to a chromosome test. The Harris campaign is so fake and astroturf that their stuff has no sticking power. It seems so like the coconut tree.
They're just desperately trying to avoid her association with communism because her father was a communist faculty member when she was born, allegedly, in California. And remember when she ran in her presidential campaign, she was going all about this equity of opportunities, equity of outcome, not equality of opportunity.
What has been shall be, or whatever that stupid.
No, that is full on Marxism, where everybody arrives at the same place, irrespective of their starting point. So it's not that you get a scholarship or you get an opportunity; it's that your destiny is preordained, courtesy of the Communist Party.
I mean, Kamala getting in there and the policies she'll implement is like the DEI end game.
Well, you say her policies. Do you believe that for a second? Or is it going to be someone like Obama's?
Or tiny hat people policies, maybe?
Yeah. Well, that's another thing possibly.
It does seem like recently the Obamas have kind of slotted themselves in to take a more prominent role in running her campaign. They gave the endorsement on a very highly produced
call, alleged.
Alleged phone call where she just happened to be mic'd up and ready to take everything on speaker, and they seem to be
about Obama's wife there, or their sound system.
Mic'd up.
I see what you did there. So that kind of throws a monkey wrench into the predictions that Michelle Obama was going to be kind of throws a wrench into the theories that Michelle Obama is going to be slotted into that presidential slot. But maybe, I mean, they seem to be throwing everything at this to astroturf her.
Yeah, but I mean, like Trump he's agreed to this debate on ABC. Kamala's refusing to have another debate with Fox. He went to the National Association of Black Journalists that Kamala
which
didn't
got bad press.
didn't even reply to. So some of the journalists there were saying, so we sent out 2 invitations months ago. Kamala didn't even reply, not even yes or no, just like drop dead, I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
Trump is the first Republican president to say yes.
I thought he did a good job. What did you watch clips of that?
No, it was a disaster.
I didn't think it was as bad as they tried to make it.
Well, the problem was
for a hostile audience and hostile interviewers.
But look, barely anybody played the clips. Right.
Just the sound bites.
But all the media ran on headlights like Trump turns up in a pillowcase with eye holes cut in it and a burning cross, right?
Yeah.
And even though there's no transcript or video evidence to that whatsoever, because it plays in with a stereotype, everyone's like, oh, Trump turned up and was racist at the NABJ. And when you actually watch the whole thing, you know, he was a bit cack-handed and he was a bit awkward, as you expect for a 76-year-old white guy. But he didn't actually say anything overtly bad. But the media, like Media Eye and MSNBC, they all just completely lied about what happened. And that did damage him.
Yeah.
And now Vance turns out to be a complete disaster. You know, his wife was clearly recruited by the CIA when she got a scholarship to go and do the British spook master's degree course at Oxford University. And I mean, you know, it's absurd. I mean, it's just absurd. He doesn't interview. He comes out with good zingers, but other than the MAGA crowd who are like going from Trump event to Trump event to a Trump event, who are going to vote for, you know, whoever he selected, I don't think that Vance is won over any independents in any regard whatsoever. I mean, the guy's 39 years old, right? He's pretty young. And they say, oh, well, he served in the Marines. He was in the press. He did 1 tour in Iraq. He wasn't even a combat correspondent. He was like good morning Vietnam type stuff, right?
Yeah. So I want to stop you right there about this, because I was talking to my friend Alex the other day about this, and that was one of the things about J.D. Vance's past that really perked my ears up, is that the job that he had in the Marines, he was like a front man for a PR position, which I heard a couple of other commentators state that this is normally a position that a first lieutenant or a captain is assigned to, and he got this as a lower enlisted man, like
as a corporal.
Yeah, as a corporal. So to me, that tells me that either A, he was extremely good as a PR front man and they put him in that position, or somebody saw something in him and said, this man can be groomed for future political aspirations.
And then he got a scholarship to Yale.
Yes. Which that right there just made me very, very, very
so
suspicious.
Between that and what you said about his wife, I mean, that stinks of deep state.
Yeah, absolutely.
So maybe, I mean, considering if everything about his past, you know, basically coming from, you know, Appalachian dirt people is true, then, you know, this is, it's very suspicious and very hinky to me, and he might not be the person that a lot of people are making him out to be.
Well, it's, you know, classic spy game, isn't it?
Yeah, it's almost like sheep dipping in reverse, where instead
you go into the military for a tour, and they find something about you and they recruit you out, right?
Right.
Find something about you bad or find something about you good? I mean,
well, when I say spy game, I mean like the movie with Robert Redford and what's the other famous actor from World War Z? Not Matt Damon, the other
Brad
guy who was married to Jennifer Lopez.
Brad Pitt in World War Z.
Brad Pitt, yeah.
Hmm.
Brad Pitt. He was in the movie Spy Game with Robert Redford, and Robert Redford recruits him out of the military at the end of his first tour.
Right.
And there's a great line in the movie where he says, "Where did you learn to shoot like that?" And he said, "The Boy Scouts."
Well, that's better
It's
than
like-
some things people learn in the Boy Scouts, I guess.
Well,
Especially nowadays.
that was when the Boy Scout pledge had you required to say that you were morally straight. They took that out.
Morally straight and literally straight.
Yeah,
Those
I think the
don't-
Boy
those don't
Scouts
apply
have as
anymore.
much females as males in it anymore, which is odd, but that's on a whole nother topic.
Yeah. Right.
We
Now,
actually had a Boy Scout troop that used to meet in our church's education building, and we had our insurance company asked us to request them not to do that anymore and find a new place because of all the nasty stuff going on with the Boy Scouts.
Sure.
I mean, they're finding that this is getting way out in the weeds, but the people are suing the Boy Scouts. There's no statute on some of the crap that happened in the Boy Scouts, I guess, and
Sure.
they're suing everybody involved with it up to like 30 years back. So they're just like, just ask them to leave, and we'll hope nothing had ever happened.
No, I mean it was a classic example where they put policies, child safety policies in place, and didn't enforce them for decades.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, they were so short of adult volunteers, they were teaching people how to circumvent the policies.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much a story that we were told from the insurance company when we were like, well, what do you guys know?
Yeah,
But,
that was when they started losing all those cases in Washington.
Jeez, we got to talk about something else. We can't end the show on that. I mean, what a bummer. Sorry.
we used to have
That was a good pun there.
we used to have a weekly segment called This Week in Nonsense.
There, yeah, that slots in right there.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, the issue that we've got going forward now, obviously, is there's a story coming out from the Hebrew media that Israel is going to preemptively strike Iran and Lebanon.
Oh,
Okay.
geez.
So, but you know, we were trying to get into this a little bit, but we were running short of time because Sam had a place to be, so we couldn't run over on the show that I just did a few hours ago, where we were pointing out that it wasn't a preemptive strike, it was a preemptive strike again, which tends to make it a bit of an oxymoron. All right? When you're like whacking them repeatedly, it ceases to be a preemptive attack. Right?
Yeah.
And so if that doesn't occur, we've just had this big speech by Nasrallah saying that they are going to strike back against the aardvarks, and it's going to be a spectacular, and it's going to be the entire axis of resistance. So it's going to be the Iraqis, the Iranians, the Houthis, Hamas, and Hezbollah all at once.
So let me get this right. I said that the Boy Scouts were too much of a downer to close out on. So you swing us over to World War III. Is that closeout? Is that?
Hey, mate, if you're going to be raptured, you'll be happy.
I don't believe
Sorry,
in that.
I figured that would be a positive note to close out on.
Yeah. Well, on that note, thanks for joining us, everybody. If you don't get raptured next week, well,
If you think you are going to be raptured, you want to max out your credit card this weekend.
max it out. If you don't think you're going to be raptured, stay your course and catch Simon and Sam on Weaponized News. They've been having some good shows because you're not getting a lot of the international stuff with everything going on domestically and weird Olympic shit. So you need to go over there and get it. Thanks for coming over and giving us the brief, Simon. Check out
Guys,
their
it's been a
website.
real pleasure, as always. Thank you ever so much for inviting me.
Yeah, thanks. And go check out them, Weaponized News on Rumble, Rockfin. What's the other one, Simon? X. They're on
Well,
X.
We're now on BitChute and Facebook and YouTube as well.
So you can catch them everywhere. Ooh, they're on YouTube. Let's see if they can last longer than we did before we got our first no for talking about people in tiny hats. Check out our website, roads2liberty.com. If you're watching us on Rumble, go like us on YouTube at roads2liberty. You could like us on Facebook if you want, but the show got shut down right away for some reason tonight. So good luck on that one. We're really throttled down on Facebook.
I think I said trannies too many times.
Yeah. Oops. So catch us next week. And as always, stay honky.